Hi Siri, I'm looking for a new podcast, one that preferably is hosted by a UF Hall of Famer, one that airs every weekday that would bring me everything I need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions. Siri, is there such a show?
Have you heard of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or any podcast platform?
Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? UF Hall of Famer Shane Matthews has a show every weekday. I'm gonna go check it out tomorrow. Thanks, Siri.
Good morning. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the program. We're glad you're along for the ride. It's Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We have JC momentarily, then we'll have Mike Morgan from ESPN SEC Network join the program. Eyes are bothering me today. Allergies. If you missed it last night, Aaron Judge hit number 62 against the Texas Rangers. So he is now the American League home run champ and could be the home run champ depending on your beliefs on steroids and all that good stuff. We got some college football tonight. UCF and SMU play in Orlando. And then we got games tomorrow. So the week's going by fast, and we're going to bring in a guy who likes to drive fast. JC. Good morning, JC. You're on the Titan More Hotline.
Yeah, thanks, QE. I got back from Nashville last night. Driving back from the airport, ran over a damn deer. And the dumbass thing, he jumps out in front of the truck. I'm doing 45 miles an hour. It's 12:30 in the morning. It's dark. I didn't see it. And I've been shaken up dramatically since then. It's just been awful. But the flight back from Nashville was good. The trip was great. I see you're sitting under the Arch of St. Louis. You know, that thing is 600 feet high. And I've been to the top of that thing, QB, and you would not be able to go because you wouldn't be able to fit in the little pod elevator that literally goes diagonally all the way to the top. I
went when I was a youngster. I haven't been back since.
Right.
So I had two choices of remote locations this week. It was St. Louis at the Gateway Arch or Branson, Missouri. You know what's in Branson, Missouri, JC?
Oh, well, lots of good golf courses and casinos and fun stuff.
Well, it's kind of the old version of Nashville. It's where like a lot of country music stuff started back in the day, but couldn't find any good pictures. So we just went with the Arch this week.
It's a good deal. I mean, look, that's Missouri, right? Missouri came into the conference because the conference wanted St. Louis, and they wanted that market up there where Kansas City and St. Louis are split right in the middle with Como. And I don't think of it as Southeast. I think of it as a Midwestern Big 12 type of school that has come into the conference, though, and I think represented itself every bit as well as Texas A&M on the field, because you can say that Missouri has been to the SEC championship game a couple times, whereas Texas A&M hasn't even sniffed it. So, give Missouri credit. This is a school that has a lot of off-field types of issues and has with its student body, but their football team they play hard. They just don't know how to win. QB. They should could easily be 2-0 in the SEC or 1-1 at the very least. Very well. They beat Auburn. They just didn't win the game, but they beat Auburn. But they didn't win the game. And then, of course, the Georgia game last week. So.
Yeah, it is what it is. We'll see how Missouri, when they roll into town for a game for homecoming.
Florida will kill them. Florida's going to kill them because Missouri is going to start believing that they just won't win. And I think after those last 2 weeks, it's going to be
it's hard for us to kill anybody when we can't stop anybody, JC.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't argue these points. It's true.
I mean, we're giving up over like 400 yards a game on defense. Andy says, is Donnie Marie still in Branson? They might be still doing a show there. JC, I want to get your thoughts. You're a Yankees fan somehow, some way. Aaron Judge breaks the record.
Yeah.
Is he the home run king to you?
Well, certainly he is undisputably in the American League, right? There's no doubt about that. To me, gosh, this is such a tough one because let me just put it to you like this. Barry Bonds never even sniffed 50 home runs until he started juicing. Then he started hitting balls 35 to 50 feet further into the Pacific Ocean in San Francisco. And we all know why. He basically admitted. I mean, the media will not vote him in the Hall of Fame. So to them, and maybe most people, like Roger Maris Jr. says, it's a fraud. It's a fraud. But he still circled the bases 73 times after hitting a baseball QB. It's a tough one for me. Aaron Judge himself even said that he thought Barry Bonds was the home run king. I'm a Yankee fan, and I'm not gonna give it to him. I think it's Aaron Judge. I'm biased though. I'm biased, but dude, come on. These guys played in an era where maybe it wasn't illegal at the time, but the voters are not going to put these guys in the Hall of Fame. They're not. And the drug policy today in baseball is such that if you get caught one time, QB, you're done. It's over. You're going to lose half the season. You're not going to play, and you're never going to get in the Hall of Fame with this current culture of voters. So what do you think? I think it's pretty clear.
I don't believe in all that kind of stuff. We got a text here, by the way.
You don't believe
this is
in
from
what?
Chris in Mayaca City. I guess we're pronouncing it correctly. He says Sosa, Bonds, McGuire couldn't have hit those home runs without the juice. Judge is the home run king.
Yeah. Well, see, I agree with him in that. But QB, what do you think? You think you got to give it to Barry Bonds?
No. To be quite honest, I don't really care.
Sure.
But no, the juice, that whole era, those guys, they're not going to let them into the Hall of Fame, which is a shame because they're damn good baseball players. They were. Barry Bonds probably is the best overall baseball player in the history of the game. He didn't need to take steroids to be a better player.
But he never sniffed 50 home runs before he did. And let me tell you something, dude. When you looked at his body after he started doing it, everything grew. He wasn't the same skinny guy that played for the Pirates that almost threw out Sid Bream at the plate in 94, whatever year it was the Braves won it all. So, he played for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he's a skinny guy. He's son of Barry Bonds. His uncle, I think, or his godfather is Willie Mays, all right, who you could say and make the case for as being the greatest player ever. And yet he had to do this because he was jealous of the attention, I think, that McGuire and Sosa had. And the media so much as admitted. I mean, he's the Balco thing with that cream, right? I mean, come on. This is what he did.
Yeah. All right. So we got a bunch of people chiming in on our trivia question yesterday saying it was wrong.
Maybe
it wasn't me. It wasn't my trivia question. Zach Alvaverde's the one that called and told me. The question was the last time the Gators scored on the first offensive play in a football game. Zach told me it was in 92, my senior year, first play against Southern Mississippi, deep post to, I think, Willie Jackson. And then then the other first play ever scored on offense was in 91. I threw to Harrison Houston in the brand new north end zone. But they're saying Brantley hit DuBose on the first play of the game against Alabama, and then we got outscored 38-3 after that. So maybe, hey, I don't, as y'all know, I don't do research. People tell me stuff, so I went with it.
Jimmy DuBose, great running back, man. I'll never forget him. Tony Green, Jimmy DuBose, and Willie Wilder, baby. That's when they were running those three guys in the backfield, fastest backfield we've ever had in history here.
Yeah. Dan says that home run ball is worth $2 million. They escorted the guy out who caught it. So,
you mean we predicted that? We said it was going to happen in Texas.
Well, it's a good thing because today's the last day of regular season.
Yeah, it is a good thing.
I think postseason starts Friday, believe it or not. So,
the wild card, yeah.
Well, JC, let's do this. We got more time, but I don't want to run out of time before we get to Mike Morgan.
Okay.
Our Peachland Dental, again, folks, our good friend Joe Lawson, who has been sponsoring the pick section, wanted us to reach out again. If you can donate $10 to the American Red Cross, it definitely would help down there in Port Charlotte, surrounding areas. It's devastation. So we're going to do some picks. JC sits at 36-32. I'm at 34-34. We got games today. We got a college game tonight, and we got NFL and college tomorrow. You want to pick some of these games?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is an interesting game of local flavor with Southern Methodist and UCF tonight at 7 o'clock down in Orlando on a Wednesday, QB. On a Wednesday. This almost feels like MACtion.
I assume both these teams don't play Saturday.
Well, no. How would they play on Saturday if they're playing tonight? This is toss up, flip a coin. I'll take UCF. Hell right.
All right, I'm going to take the Mustangs.
I don't blame you. I knew you would. That's why I took UCF. But I really don't have an opinion, a strong way, one way or the other on that game. In the NFL, though, tomorrow night, the Broncos and Colts, that's just a trash game. It's not – you got two teams with a combined 2 wins, and, the Colts can't get off the mat. Somehow they beat the Chiefs, right? They held Kansas City to 17 points, and they look like crap the other 3 games they played. You got Denver. Russell Wilson is hurt. Defensively, another good team, but they just don't score points. They're at home laying 3.5. I think I'm going to take the Colts plus the points here. I'm sorry, all my friends in Denver. I don't know, plus 3.5. I don't think Russell Wilson's healthy. I think that's a problem for
What's
Denver.
wrong with him?
He's banged up pretty good.
He is? I didn't hear that, but I'm taking the Colts too.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't understand Denver. He's got a little bit of a shoulder problem, Russell Wilson does. So he's listed as questionable. So they've got some issues. Randy Gregory's out. Melvin Gordon is questionable. These games, man, these Thursday night games, QB, do you like them? I mean, is this something you like, or does it matter to you at all? Probably doesn't even matter to you, does it?
What?
Thursday night NFL football.
No, I don't care. I like the college games. I wish they'd go back to that.
Yeah.
All right, Matt from Mariana says, I'm sorry. I know this is off topic. This is on the Titan Mar text line.
Oh.
But deer are a nuisance and public safety hazard. They are entirely overpopulated. Just think of what car accidents caused by deer are doing to car insurance rates. I sympathize with you, Jason.
Thank you, dude.
My man Matt in Mariana. There's a lot of deer out that way.
Matt, thank you so much. I appreciate your sentiment. And dude, I was shaking. I'm the kind of guy that gets nervous as hell running over a squirrel. I run over a squirrel and I lose my mind. I can't believe it. I was like, why did he run in front of
You're just a very sensitive man, Jason.
I just don't like killing stuff. And then this deer, of course.
Well, you may not have killed it.
Oh, no. Oh, I hit it at 45, 50 miles an hour on 91st. Don't drive back that way toward Archer Road, folks. If you're going down 91st, there is a splattered doe. And I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I hope I don't get in trouble by saying this because it's something I should have done. But it was 12:30 in the morning. I was scared to death, and I couldn't believe it. I hit the deer, ran in front of the car, a truck, a Dodge Ram, Hemi, just plowing through 91st Street. And this suicidal doe screams out in front of my fender. Now I've got to go, and it's not destroyed or anything, but it's like it rubs up against the tire if I turn left. This is not the kind of stuff I deal with. I'm not good at this kind of emergency protocol shit. I'm not good at this. I don't know where to go. I don't know who to go to.
Basically, that deer had no awareness. Is what you're saying.
It was like he was attracted to the headlight. And I had the brights on. The stupid ass deer. I had the brights on, and he goes right into me. I was like, why? And I didn't slow down in time. This is tragic. And there is a mess down there. So it's
Tim says the Ram beats deer. The Dodge Ram beats the deer. Are you in the market to buy or sell your home? Darring, we be a realtor, Caldwell Banker, M. Parish. We'll provide you with fast, friendly, reliable service. Call her today at 352-562-1411 to help your dreams come true. JC,
does the deer have
Are you going to Gator Growl Friday night?
Maybe the deer has a family. I mean, how do you know that doe?
Well, he did have a family somewhere.
Well, or she. And, I mean, it didn't have horns. It wasn't one of these.
Joseph says, JC, were you drinking and driving at 12:30 a.m.?
What? No, I was coming back from the airport. I just landed from Nashville, Tennessee. By the way, Southwest did a great job getting us home safe, and they're really great. They're old planes, though. The 737-700 series is an 18-year-old plane. Can we update and get to the MAX 900, please? But at any rate, I was just tired, QB. Nashville, 3 days. Come on. That's
Daniel says, Facebook Live brought to you by Melon. Have you ever heard of deer in the headlights, JC?
That's exactly what it was. And I was the poor slob that took them out, man.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk. I just asked, are you going to Gator Growl Friday night?
No, I'm either going to be.
Gator Growl now is in the O'Connell Center My good buddy Danny Werfel is hosting it.
That's good.
But just think about where Gator Growl is gone.
Yeah.
They used to set up all those stages and everything in the swamp.
So good. Yeah.
And it was a big ordeal. Then they moved it to like Flavet for a while. Now it's in the O'Connell Center. I don't know if it's only for the student body now. Do they do skits? Do people even go to this thing?
I think it's on its deathbed, and it's in God's waiting room right now. Gator Growl, R.I.P. I mean, it's not what it was. Gator Growl was the greatest pre-homecoming pep rally / entertainment value Gainesville ever brought to town, and it was like
the largest pep rally / whatever in the country at one time.
Well, and it actually in the 70s and 80s, it was a little raunchy at times, and it brought comedians here that people really loved watching back in those days. And they put 70,000 fans in that stadium to watch it. And then the fireworks show afterwards. You can't do fireworks in the O'Connell Center or whatever it's called now. You can't do that. So, hip replacement arena, whatever it is, you can't do it. You can't do it. So I just think, exact tech. So it's homecoming to me, QB. Let me ask you this. Why do schools do homecoming after home games? Homecoming means you're coming back from a road trip and you've been gone.
No, that's not what it means. Yes, homecoming means for alumni to come back home.
Well, okay. Yeah. Well, okay, that's true, but it also should represent the team being gone and then returning home along with the alumni to watch a game. Okay, you don't do homecoming after 2 home games.
Well, hell, we play like 7 home games this year.
Yeah, so 6 out of the first 7 are at home. How about this? After this game with Ewha the other day, you got Missouri, and then next week it's LSU. I mean, at some point, do fans get tired of 3 straight home games? Do you think the fans that tired?
Well, not a lot of people came this past week, and you'll see a decent crowd this week. The crowd will be for LSU because the Cajuns will be rolling into town.
They'll come. They think they're good. LSU thinks they're good. They actually think they've got a threat to beat Alabama this year, which is laughable. But Tennessee's going to go in there this weekend and show them what it's about because Tennessee is going to score on that team. And I think Tennessee's going to beat them, but we'll talk about that Friday, QB. I got to get over this deer thing, dude. This has really got me shaking.
Do you need to go to counseling?
Well, you're from Mississippi and you do all the outdoorsy stuff, and you're the kind of guy that loves looking.
It happens, ain't it? It ain't like let's just be glad it wasn't a dude riding a bike. Okay.
Oh, well, yeah. Good point.
Dan says Flow Rider. I know you listen to Flow Rider. You know who that is, right, Jason?
Yeah.
He's like a rapper, I think. Flow Rider. I think he was here a few years ago. He's performing at Gator Growl. So there'll be a lot of rapping going on in the O'Connell Center.
The kids will get into it. The kids will, But again, you can put.
I think Flow Rider's too old for these kids.
I think you're right, actually. But it's movement, it's energy, and 10,000 fans inside. I don't. It's not. Well, whatever. It's their version of Gator Growl can be different than ours. QB.
I had to do a little thing for Warfel, a little video, and they wanted memories of my Gator Growl. So my senior year, I believe it was my senior year. It may have been my junior year.
Yeah.
Remember this? Remember the skit Wayne's World on Saturday Night Live?
Yes.
Okay. So they did this big skit called Shane's World. And it was funny as hell. I can't remember if it was my junior or my senior year. We reminisced about that a little bit, but I don't think they do any of that stuff anymore.
Did you go? So you went on the stage with the other players?
Yeah, I had to speak my senior year.
Oh, you did?
I don't know what the hell. I don't know what I said, but we played back in those days. All the homecoming games were against the Furmans and the Charleston Southerns of the world. You didn't have conference games, but now with the way they reshuffled the scheduling stuff, you can't do that.
I will tell you something, QB. You don't know this story, but this is a true story about you. My mom saw you walking on campus one day, and she didn't know. She's not big on football. She doesn't know all the players, but she somehow knew who you were. She said, "I'll never forget seeing that young man, Matthews. Shane Matthews, the quarterback of the football team, was such a shockingly good-looking young man. He was gorgeous, dark-haired, tan skin. He was beautiful. And I was just taken by the fact that the Florida Gator quarterback was such a good-looking young man. And she said that. And if you don't believe me, I'll tell her to call you and tell you that story.
I believe you, JC. Back to the show. The Titan MR hotline. Who is this from?
It happened.
This is from our buddy Chris in Mayaca City.
Oh,
I don't even know if that's the way to pronounce it.
He's online, man.
Sounds good to me.
Okay,
he says, I'm still the only person that I know of that has listened to your show live while skinning a deer.
Oh.
So my man, he goes hunting, and when he's skinning his deer, he listens to the podcast.
I'm all for hunting deer to keep the population from becoming diseased and having Lyme disease afflicted the whole world like COVID. But what I will tell you is that when it jumps in front of your car at 12:30 in the morning doing 50 miles an hour after a long, hard time in Nashville and flying back, you are shocked. And I was. And
he wished you would have cut the back straps out of the deer.
I don't even know what a backstrap is, but I will tell you.
That's some good eating right there. It's like yeah.
You know what's eating it now are these ugly blackbirds with, crows and vultures, man. They're having a Thanksgiving Day feast down there on 91st because that thing is all over the place. I'm just telling you, and it makes me sad. I hate killing animals, and I sure as hell don't like running them over with a truck.
Well, we will get you counseling. Maybe we'll have a new sponsor.
Ask Mike if he has any. Ask Mike. He's a worldly guy. God bless him, and he goes everywhere. Ask Mike Morgan if he's got any advice. You can do it off air. You don't even have to do it on the show because
I don't know if Mike is going to be able to counsel you, but we got somebody locally that could give you some counseling.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'll talk to him too. Yeah. I mean, he went out and got a bear in Colorado. Did you know that?
Yes, we know that guy. Yeah, he likes to kill exotic animals. Okay. All right, JC, we're going to let you go so you can go. Go dial 1-800 counseling or something. Go get your mind right. Yeah. And we will talk to you on Friday. Hopefully, you'll be in a better state of mind.
We'll pick games. Okay, that sounds good.
All right, that's JC. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to take a timeout. We're going to come back. We're going to be joined by Mike Morgan. We're going to talk football, college and NFL, and not about running over a deer. We're watching and listening to Fight Up with Matthews in the Morning.
Oh.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Points where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like the Keys Bar and Grill, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Le Macaron, the Gadget Guys, and the HBC's restaurant Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, now selling Head Beer Coach American Lager in 16-ounce cans. Available at Spurrier's, Visors, and Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. We'll see you at Celebration Point where the Gators go to celebrate. We're going to head now to the Titan MR hotline, to our man who did all kinds of celebrating back in the day at Gator Growl way back when. Mike Morgan from ESPN, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Good morning, Mike. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How's everybody out there?
Doing all right. We just it's homecoming here. You're a
Yeah.
former Gator student.
Uh-huh.
Remember the days of all the skits and comedians and stuff at Gator Ground? They don't do that anymore. Now our man Danny Werfel is hosting it this year in the O'Connell Center. I didn't even know that it moved to the O'Connell Center, but it's kind of gone to the wayside now.
It breaks my heart to hear that because I remember when I first arrived on campus, and it was that fall, everybody was talking about it, and former grads and alums were saying, "Oh, you got to go, you got to go." And I said, "What's the big deal? Like, it's a homecoming. I've been to those type of things before. Like, no, this is different. It's the biggest in the country. No other college does it like Gator Growl." And it was great. I mean, the skits are skits, but I remember not so much the musicians, it was the comedians. I mean, when I was there, I know a very raw Dave Chappelle performed one time. Dennis Miller performed. Brian Regan was a very underrated comedian. I think he was at the first Gator Growl that I attended. So you had the great comedians, and you had the highlight reels that they put together. Like I remember the first one I saw, and they started with the famous alums. And when the Emmitt Smith highlight reel came on, I was just like, oh, I was blown away. You got to remember, this is early 90s. So Emmitt's already making a name for himself in the NFL, and he's not that far off playing in Gainesville. And I just, it gave me chills. So yeah, it was bad. It was like really, really awesome stuff back in the day. It pains me to hear it's not even in the swamp anymore.
Yeah, it moved a long time ago. It's been in Flavette Field for a while, and I guess they moved it to the O'Connell Center. So anyway, that's this weekend, homecoming. We'll get to the Gator game in a minute. Let's go back to last week. I guess the one game that stood out to me, it was two undefeated teams there in Oxford, Mississippi. Kentucky had multiple opportunities to win that game. But neither one of those teams are top 10 teams, Mike.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. First off, to your point, Kentucky should have won the game. I mean, they basically checked off a list of 5 things to do to lose it in the end. If you watch that game, I don't know how you didn't come away with Ole Miss. Kentucky's a better team, and they weren't even at full strength. I mean, we've talked about this before on your show. The strength of their defense is the linebacking core. It's clear as day. Well, they were already down 1, and they had another one get hurt in the middle of the game. So you took that away, and Rodriguez clearly is going to be Rodriguez again, but he's still getting off some of the rust. But I thought what stood out is A, Kentucky is a better team, but B, to your other point, I don't think there are that many top 10 teams.
No, I agree.
Once you get past Bama, Ohio State, and we know Georgia has not looked great the last couple of weeks, but they still have a top 10 roster. Once you get back past those 3, what are we talking really? We're talking maybe Michigan, maybe
Clemson.
Southern Cal. What's that? Oh yeah,
maybe Clemson.
Clemson, and we could easily be talking about a Clemson team that lost to Wake Forest, but they didn't. So give them credit, and they did what I expected them to do against NC State. But yeah, I'm not sure we have more than 3 really good teams this year.
Yeah, I agree. Andy has a question for you on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel. He says, Mike, if Ole Miss finds a passing game, can they challenge Bama in the West? I think the team that's going to challenge Bama is Mississippi State.
I've said that all along, Shane. My second place team in the West was Mississippi State preseason. Now they let me down against LSU. But I think they take care of business against A&M again, which would be something like, you'd have to look this up, but I think it would be the 4th time in 6 years they've beaten A&M, or 5 and 7. They've owned A&M, and so I think it's Mississippi State in the West. I think they win the Egg Bowl this year. I just think they're the best team out there. Ole Miss is, I give them credit, and they are a classic example of what college football is like in 2022, because 5-10 years ago, we would be watching Ole Miss struggle with the loss of an NFL quarterback, with a loss of their offensive coordinator, with a loss of a lot of the key players on both sides of the football. But what did they do? They invaded the portal. I mean, nobody dominated the portal this offseason the way that Ole Miss did. And they kind of did it under the radar, right? Because they didn't get like a 5-star recruit to go over, like what happened with Lincoln Riley poaching his guy from Oklahoma, taking him to Southern Cal. I mean, they do. Jackson Dart's a very highly touted kid, but they get a running back at a TCU. TCU's not exactly front and center on the college football landscape. They get key wide receivers. They get key players on defense. They're all over. I don't know if anybody had more success in the portal. So what that did was it held back the rebuilding process. They didn't have to rebuild. They just got a bunch of veterans in there. And so they didn't take as big a step back as you would have 5-10 years ago. That being said, I'm still not as sold on Ole Miss. Like you said, that's not a top 10 team. They're undefeated. That's a great story. And Lane's done a good job there, but I don't think they're that good a team.
No, I agree with you. All right, let's talk about A&M. A&M, they have to go to Tuscaloosa this week. They sit at 3-2. And Mike, I mean, everybody talks about it. I'm sure you talk about it on your podcast and all around Atlanta. I mean, Jimbo, they're just not very good, especially offensively. I mean, what do you think is going to happen here? They're not going to beat Alabama. I think Bryce Young is going to play. I think he'll get shot up. I think Alabama rolls them.
Yeah.
But they still have some other games that they could lose. What happens if they go near 500 with Jimbo?
Shane, I just don't think you can pull the plug on Jimbo. What they did is they made the huge investment on the front end. Like, they didn't wait till he did a lot and then said, okay, move all our chips in on the table on Jimbo. They made it so that even for a school that has gobs and gobs of money like A&M, they made it nearly impossible to fire him so early. And as we see right now with the landscape, we are watching Power 5 teams get fired. Power 5 coaches get fired in October and late September like it's no big deal. We have now morphed into the NFL. Okay, we've got free agency with players, and we've got coaches. If you don't get it done, we're just going to fire you in the middle of the season. That's where we are in today's day and age. But you can't do that with Jimbo right now. Not because they can't afford it, because they probably could go under those seat cushions and find some more oil money. But I just don't think like, even if you did, where are you going? Like, what is your can't miss coach? Because that was Jimbo. You got another can't miss guy. What, are you going to give him $100 million? And then why? You just can't do it. I think you've made this commitment. It's going to have to go at least another couple of years. They have to figure out. Here's the thing, Shane, that's just so mind-boggling to me. I understand why A&M's bad on defense. They lost a lot of guys, right? And unlike Ole Miss, they didn't invade the portal and just pick up a bunch of fifth-year seniors to play defense. They got a bunch of 5-star freshmen that are going to make a lot of NIL money that eventually will probably be really good. But this was going to be a step back defensively. Why in the hell they are bad on offense with one veteran quarterback in the portal, another guy that he's been raving about in Haynes King, Aniyah Smith, A-Chain's going to be an NFL running back. Like, I get it, their offensive line's not good, but you can't tell me that offense shouldn't be better. That to me is just, it's the ultimate head scratcher. And Jimbo's got questions to answer, because you take away the 2 years from Jameis Winston in Tallahassee, and where is the brilliance on offense during his time as a head coach?
No, I can't. I agree 100%. I just, and I don't know if it's because I despise A&M now because of all the nonsense that went on with the NIL. I think if you take all that stuff about them buying the players out of the equation, nobody really cares. Yeah, Jimbo's making all this money, but now he's making all this money with all this money they've given to these players to buy a team, and they still lose. So I think everybody wants them to lose. So I think they get hammered this weekend. Let's talk about Georgia. Georgia goes to Missouri. You call games at Como. I went there last year for my first time ever, and it's a weird atmosphere.
It's different.
And they took the best shot. Missouri had opportunities to win the game, but give Georgia credit. They found ways to win at the end. Mm-hmm. They have Auburn this weekend between the hedges, and good Lord, Auburn has issues. Could this be the end of Brian Harsin if they get blasted in Athens?
I don't think there's any question. I think, talking to my sources, if you will, and at Auburn and people that cover that team, they're just it's a matter of when, not if, is what they're thinking. That this was like doomed for failure from the off season on. I don't know how you just kind of gloss over that. It was almost like, well, if you have this perfect type season, we'll let you hang around. But short of that, it's just a matter of time before boom goes the dynamite. And so I think everybody on the Plains is just waiting for that. And then you're hearing all this kind of conjecture out there already about who's the next guy going to be. And you've got Dion rumors. I was on a show the other day and somebody mentioned Will Muschamp. There's no way Auburn is going to hire Will Muschamp. As you get 2 chances. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't get 3. You don't get 3. So that ain't going to happen. But no, I don't know how it can be non-dysfunctional the rest of the way in Auburn. So I think we're all just kind of waiting for that. There's a couple other names out there that you'd be surprised if they last the end of the season in college football.
On Facebook, I got great statisticians here, Mike. All my listeners, they pull up stats. So listen to this stat. Dan says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law. The semis, FSU was 26-1 with Jameis Winston as their starter.
Right.
And Jimbo was 46-27 without Jameis.
That is amazing. And the thing about college football, unlike the NFL, we have to parse that even further. The 46, how many of those were Power 5 wins, right? Like how many of I mean, what is he without Jameis in, relatively good competition? And that's a major question mark right now. I got to be honest, like I'm not trying to pile on here. There's certain things that Jimbo has done throughout his career that are impressive, particularly as a coordinator. But I didn't get the whole, this is a can't lose hire. Like this is a complete slam dunk home run hire when they got him. The reaction to that hire to me was a little bit off. And I know people that, like we all do, Shane, we all know people that went to Florida State, right? So I hear it from my Seminole friends, and they were just like, here's the door, because there was a lot of complaining about the facilities and the this and the that, and I think a lot of people got tired of that. It was almost like, we lost this big game again, but here's my excuse. And so when all that went down, I was like, okay, Jim was going to recruit well at Texas A&M. And I thought that they'd have, at bare minimum, continual success on offense. But you look at it, even like Kellen Mond. Did Kellen Mond get better from his sophomore to junior year, junior to senior? It looked like the same quarterback to me. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, real quick. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville, North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today. 352-244-0840. We're Mike Morgan, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union on the Titan Moore Hotline. All right, maybe the biggest game in the SEC this weekend. It's a nooner, 11 o'clock Central Time at Tiger Stadium, which the LSU fans can't be happy about the start time. But Tennessee coming off of buys, rolling into town. And I don't know. I mean, I'm looking right here because JC and I do the Peachland Dental picks every week, and I'm looking here, and the spread is only 3. Yeah, that just seems fishy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched LSU play. They had zero business beating Auburn the other day. I mean, Auburn basically they had a scoop and score, and then Auburn did a bunch of dumb stuff.
Right.
Can the Tigers win this game against Tennessee?
Can they? Yes. Look, I still have questions about Tennessee's defense.
I agree.
You might even say we have answers about Tennessee defense. It ain't that good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
there's your forget about questions. I don't think it's a very good defense, and so that's where the point spread comes into play, right? It's a road game. There's some weird history there. Everybody has probably seen the video clip of what happened 12 years ago, back in the Derek Dooley era, an era that Tennessee fans would love to forget. Um, and so if you're LSU and it looks like they're getting their confidence now, they're getting their swagger back. And I do believe Brian Kelly is a very good coach. Like, I had a lot more confidence in that hire than I did, say, Jimbo Fisher, because Kelly's won wherever he's gone. And he hasn't always had the best talent in the world, but he's always been a consistent winner. So I would still pick Tennessee, but I get why the point spread is too low. And by the way, one thing about the 12 o'clock, people have to get this out of their head that, like, being the 12 o'clock game is this kind of slap in the face, and it says that the people making those decisions don't really value the game. That's not the case at all. What TV folks want is they want, when you get done watching game day at noon, they want you to be excited about the game coming up at noon. And it used to be you'd go straight from game day to, like, Illinois versus Northwestern and on a Big Ten yawn fest. Now what they're doing is they're putting some quality SEC Big 12 type games at noon, and that's that window. And then everybody knows the 3:30 CBS window. And then primetime, you've always got big games. But they want you sitting on that couch from game day to noon to, as long if we ever get Pac-10 at night in full effect, all the way to midnight. So it's not I know a lot of people don't like noon games. I'll tell you this much: if you're a fan sitting at home and you got nothing going on, having a good noon game to watch is pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just know that it seemed like for so many years that whether it was the conference or whoever just refused to give LSU those early games.
Right.
Because, night games in Tiger Stadium, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Sean says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melton Law, they should have kept Gus. He was the only coach in the West to keep Saban in check, and look at his record. I mean, it's true. When you go back and think about it, Gus wins the national title, but he is the only coach in the West that actually beats Saban every now and then. But they ran him out of town. So
beat him three times. If I'm not mistaken, had a 69% winning percentage. Put them in position at least to win a national title. Didn't get one, but came close. If he had a Cam Newton, he might be sitting with a ring instead of Gene Chizik. When Paul Chryst got fired at Wisconsin yesterday or 2 days ago, that's the closest thing to the Gus firing I could think of. You got two guys that really didn't have to apologize for much on their resume, and they both got whacked. It hasn't worked out well for Auburn. Will it work out well for Wisconsin?
Yeah, that's a good point. Gators are playing homecoming against the Missouri Tigers, who I'm not sure. I mean, Missouri has lost back-to-back heartbreakers. Mm-hmm. They're coming over here. They're playing an early game. They left it all on the field there. I'm not sure which Missouri team's going to show up in the swamp. I have a feeling it's going to be a flat one. I could be 100% wrong. But this is a game that Florida has to win. And, I was talking to somebody the other day. Florida sits at 3-2. And before the season, we all said if they can win 7 games, it'd be a great year. Mm-hmm. Well, now the schedule from here on out doesn't look as difficult as you thought. I mean, you thought A&M, there was no way you were going to win out there. Now, Georgia, I think Georgia's clearly better than the Florida team, but anything can happen. Mm-hmm. But Florida could get to 8 wins or maybe more if they take care of the teams they're supposed to beat.
Yeah, look, if they can just continue, I'm not expecting the offense that we saw against Tennessee, but just a continual, gradual climb, just a little bit better each and every week, a little more consistent. Have Richardson continue to develop and blossom into his role. Do the things you have to do to win close games, because I do think a lot of those games left on the schedule will be close, right? And so that's when, pressure bursts pipes, right? That's when you're going to figure out what this team is really made of, because I don't see a ton of double digit. Now, maybe against Missouri, because Missouri gave Georgia its best punch, but that's not Missouri. Missouri's not a good football team. You're not going to see a very good football. I like their coach. I think Eli Drinkwitz is a unique guy, and that is a unique job. I think for a lot of people, and I go out there to do games. I've been there to do a handful of football, a number of basketball. There's a lot of that fan base that's still trying to get used to the SEC. You know, it's if you've been to like A&M right away, you felt like, yeah, that's an SEC school. It's an SEC town. It's got an SEC vibe. That's never been the case in Como. It's just different. And so I think there's this weird adjustment period. What has it been now? Close to a decade. And it still feels like they're kind of settling into what their place is in the Southeastern Conference.
What's crazy is they're 5-5 against the Gators.
That is nuts.
Well, and they've won more games against us than the Tennessee Volunteers had.
I know, right? Now, you got to remember, like some people will say, "Hey, look, Missouri, don't sleep on the fact that they've been to 2 SEC championship games." That is when, and I hate to do this, I'm not trying to take away from what Missouri has done overall, but that is when the SEC East was at an all-time low. I mean, it's
so
brutal
bad
because you had everybody down at the same time, right? Like Florida, Tennessee.
Georgia,
it was just Kentucky wasn't Kentucky yet. It was just a bad division, and Missouri was opportunistic, and they found a path to get to Atlanta, and then would get blown out. Didn't belong on the same field against Alabama or whoever. But yeah, Missouri early on, those early Pinkel teams, and they always seem to have first-round draft picks on the defensive line. Like those days have not existed since.
Yeah. I want to get your thoughts. Game day is going to Lawrence, Kansas. The Jayhawks are undefeated, facing a TCU team that's undefeated. I think TCU wins this game, but Lance Leipold, I think is how you pronounce his name. I could be wrong there.
You're right.
He's done a phenomenal job, obviously.
Absolutely.
Will probably not be at Kansas next year. How do you see, does Kansas keep it going? And do you think Leipold will be somewhere else next year?
Well, here's the interesting thing. People say, well, why do you fire a coach early? Some people believe at Wisconsin. Now, keep in mind, Lance Leipold made his bones. They'll talk about Buffalo and did a good job at Buffalo. He's not the only guy that did a good job at Buffalo. He made his bones winning a half a dozen national titles at Wisconsin Whitewater.
Correct.
Yeah. So there's already Wisconsin fans saying, that's our guy. Back up the Briggs truck and get him over here. Well, there's also a guy, Coach Leonard, who's the interim, who is a guy that walked on there. He's a 5'8" safety, who was a phenomenal player and then made it in the NFL at his side.
He was a teammate of mine, a heck of a football player.
I didn't know. Oh, where was he? Where was he?
We were together in Buffalo.
Okay, so I mean, that dude is like, talk about the ultimate Rudy. I mean, that's a true Rudy, right? Yeah. And so some people believe that you fire Chris because this is almost like a trial run for Leonard. And if he does extremely well, it's his job. But if he doesn't, well, then you go to Leipold and you offer him a bunch of money. Either way, I don't think you can go wrong if you're Wisconsin. Now, to your other question, can Kansas keep it up? Heck, I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors that they're doing right now. But it just goes to show you that guy can flat out coach because there's not a lot of talent in Lawrence, Kansas. They got a quarterback. They do have a quarterback, but they don't have a bunch of Jimmies and Joes, and they're still winning games. It's one of the best coaching jobs, quite frankly, that we've seen in the last decade.
Yeah, it's a great story. There's no question about that. Ruzover State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit overinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. A few more minutes with Mike Morgan from ESPN, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. All right, I'm going to ask you this every Wednesday. We're 5 games in? We're almost at the halfway point. Give me your top 3 Heisman votes.
Okay, well, clearly Stetson lost a lot of steam. You mentioned Hendon Hooker last week. Certainly, if Tennessee keeps performing the way they have been on offense and they win a few more big games, look, this is another grand opportunity. A lot of people, like I said, they'll be going straight from game day watching that LSU-Tennessee game. How does he perform against an LSU team that, again, defensively, the athletes are always there. If they're salty and he has an off day, then he'll kind of fly off the radar. We got to start talking out west, and I realize they struggled a bit against Oregon State, but Caleb Williams of Southern Cal, we got to start talking about him because
Mike, I agree. but I watched them last week. They were finally on TV at a decent, well, still 10 o'clock.
Right.
They have one of the worst defenses I've ever seen in college
Did they
football.
really?
Oh, so bad. I don't know if they can beat anybody worth a darn. It's going to be a shootout. But
you know how that is. Guess what he's going to do? He's going to pile up stats, right? Because you got to.
Yes. He's very good. He's an excellent player.
Yeah, I mean, he was a stud recruit for a reason, and Lincoln Riley did everything he could to take him to Southern Cal for a reason. So we got to start talking about him in this conversation, along with the usual suspects. The thing that could rock the apple cart now. Does Bryce Young? You mentioned he's going to play. Well, he may not. I mean, if he misses a couple of games, now that tips the scale a little bit, right? I think it's starting to be again a pretty wide open deal. And you know who I was thinking the other day? I understand Will Anderson's got the name, but if Georgia keeps doing Georgia stuff, maybe the attention ought to be to the guy who I think is as good as any pure player in college football this year, and Brock Bowers.
Yeah,
I mean that dude, like, he's not a sophomore. He's like a 25-year-old NFL veteran in a Georgia uniform. He's ridiculously good. Remember all the hype that surrounded Kyle Pitts, his breakout year, and people were like, "Why not a tight end? Why not? Why not?" Well, we always have that as a Heisman voter. I know this. There's always that pressure, like stop voting for quarterbacks. Be original. Okay, well then give me something to really be original about. If Brock Bowers lights it up and continues to do freakishly good things and Georgia keeps winning, he's got to be in the conversation.
Yeah, Sean says, what about that Alabama wide receiver, that stud number one? I think he's thinking of Jahmyr Gibbs. He wears number one. He's the running back. He's out. He's really, really good.
He's part of the reason why Jeff Collins is looking for a job at Georgia Tech, because that was their everything at Georgia Tech. He was the one really, really good football player they had, and he bolted. And yes, it's a great point. He certainly is one of the best players in college football. He's another freak. Well, I can't wait to see him in the NFL. He reminds me of Alvin Kamara. Like he's that type of good, and he can put him at receiver, you can put him at back, but whenever he touches it, it's going to be electric.
Yeah. All right. 2 quick questions before we get you out of here. Andy says, Mike, what's your take on Damien Pierce's early success in the NFL?
Give me where is he at? Like, give me.
Well, Damien Pierce, who's now the starting running back for the Texans, he's had an unbelievable year.
Okay, because I'll be honest, I haven't seen a Texans game, and I haven't done a Texans game. So I'll take your word for it that he's putting up numbers.
Yeah, he's basically, the Gator Nation is upset still with Dan Mullen for not giving that kid the ball enough. And he's now the starting running back in the National Football League.
Yeah. You could add a lot of things they're upset with Dan Mullen about in terms of philosophy, play calling, recruiting. I did not know that I knew he was in the league, but honestly, I didn't know he was having that great a start. So good for him.
Yeah. All right. Last thing, because you're a baseball guy. Real quick, I think today's the last day of the regular season. Judge hits 62 last night. Yeah. In your mind, is he the home run champ?
By the way, congrats to the Braves. That's Gainesville in Florida. Much of Florida is always going to be a Braves country. Yes. I mean, there's no question Bonds juiced, McGuire juiced, Sosa juiced. I'm not saying that the Bonds in particular was an elite talent. I mean, phenomenal. And the stuff that he did on the juice will never be done again, I don't believe, in our lifetime. But yeah, Judge is clean. He did it clean. He earned it. Yeah.
Who you got in the World Series?
Well, keep in mind, you go back to like when the Marlins won the World Series in '97 as a wild card, and we had a few other wild card teams. This is not that setup. Now, by winning the division, you get to sit out and watch the wild card teams battle it in the first round while you're taking 5 days off to get rested and set up your pitching. So I don't think a wild card team has a shot. I think that's why that particular division title was so big. I still think, sorry, Braves fans, and I worked there for a while. I think the Dodgers are the most complete team and the most complete roster. it's hard for me to bet against the Dodgers just based on that. I would go with LA in the National League, and I would go with the Yankees in the American League as of right now. Hope I'm wrong.
Two best teams money can buy. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You can still buy a World Series in baseball. At least the Braves have done it. They're a top 10 payroll or top 12, but they're not like just writing blank checks like they did in the Ted Turner days. They are more of a model of draft well, make smart, shrewd moves, don't overpay for veterans, and just have a great culture in that clubhouse, which they do.
Mike, good stuff as always, buddy. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
You got it, Shane. Always a pleasure.
That's Mike Morgan joining us on the Titan MR Hotline. It's brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Hope you enjoyed today's program, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.